Philosopher and poet Friedrich Nietzsche famously said, "That which does not kill us makes us stronger." Iconic British punk band Chumbawanga reinforced this profound sentiment with their inspirational 1997 hit, "I Get Knocked Down, but I Get Up Again." I'm Jane Holgren, and I am neither a philosopher nor a member of Chumbawanga, unfortunately. I'm an English and drama high school teacher in Dolby, playwright, freelance writer, and lover of stories. Fun fact about me is that I actually hated school, but I've always loved stories. I love how a good story can make you laugh 1 minute and cry the next, how they can teach and entertain and empower us. Most of all, I love how sharing stories, our own stories, can connect us with ourselves and each other. Now, the cool thing about stories is that everyone has at least one, which is exactly why I'm here to share with you a really exciting project that's happening in our region right now. Shout Out is an award winning competition connecting people across the Western Downs through storytelling. And this year, they want your stories based on the theme Unbreakable. And just so you guys know, they aren't even going to look at your spelling or your punctuation. They literally don't care. In fact, you don't even have to write your story down. You can record it on a voice memo and send it in. Point is, if you have a good story that fits the theme of Unbreakable, they want to hear it. So, what does unbreakable mean? Every single one of us has faced challenges of some kind in our lives. It could be something big that changed you forever. For example, the loss of a loved one or an unexpected diagnosis, flood, drought. Or it could be something comparatively small, like struggling at school and never feeling quite as smart as your mates. Or alternatively, it could be living regionally and remotely and how that's impacted the opportunities that you have in your life. Soon we'll be going through a step by step process of how to get your story from idea stage to something ready to submit. Okay, so some of you might be ready to get cracking, and others are probably currently building paper planes out of a blank piece of paper that was in front of them and wondering why they would voluntarily do more homework. Now, for those people, remember how I said before about the power of stories, about how it can help connect us to ourselves and individuals and to each other. And look, I'll cut to the point. You get $250 if you win. 250. Not a bad little earning for the next half an hour of work and effort. Certainly much more than paper planes will get you, that's for sure. Also, you get your story made into a professional film. It gets premiered at Words Out West, and you get a year's worth of membership for Queensland Writers Centre and free entry into their youth festival in Brisbane, and the $250. Okay, so now we've got all of the whys out of the way. Let's get writing. Now, I don't know about you, but sometimes I find starting writing is the hardest part. And that's why I always recommend a warm up. Writing is kind of like exercising in that way. You wouldn't just jump into a field or into a pitch or whatever and just go for it straight away. You need to do some stretches to warm up. So, to get our writing muscles primed, we are going to do a super easy technique called free writing. So, basically, all you have to do with free writing is read the following prompts on the next slide. You're going to pick one. When the timer goes off, you're going to start writing, and then you're not going to stop writing until the time is up. Super quickly, before we start, you need to know the point of free writing is just to write and not stop. The idea of it is that it's going to get rid of all of that clutter and that overthinking and all of those worries and random thoughts that run through our heads all day, every day. It's going to get rid of them all and get our brain ready for the actual writing part. Think of it like a shower for your brain. Okay, now we're all warmed up. Let's keep our brains moving right on to the ideas stage. So, for this part, I want you to draw a picture of a road like in this up here. This picture up here. On one end, you're going to put the year of your birth. For me, 1983. For you, that'll be like something like 2000 and yesterday. And then you are going to fill out your road from the year you were born until this year, with all of the things or the important events that have happened in your life so far. So, for example, it could be when you moved houses or towns, or when you found a really special mate, or when you lost a friend, or when you won a prize, or when you lost a, you get the idea. It can be anything that's significant to you. So with our roads, it's also important to remember it doesn't have to be all happy or all sad. It's going to be both, because obviously that's what life is. So get to your roads. Now, look back over your road and I want you to find the events that are in there that have shaped you in some way. Anything that taught you a lesson about life or about yourself. I want you to circle those events. And once you've circled them, I want you to draw an arrow off them and write down what that event taught you. It doesn't have to be super wordy or fancy. You can just start with, I learned that, and whatever it is. And once you're done, pick an event on your road that you would like to write about. Okay, now we're on to the planning and structure stage. Now, these are both really important when it comes to storytelling. Have you ever heard a kid tell a story? Even if it's a cracker, it tends to go all over the shop and you lose interest fairly quickly. Now, that's why we need a structure and a plan. Every movie, every TV show, every book, every good story has a structure and a plan. So, for our storytelling exercise today, we're going to use this really simple structure: introduction, rising tension, climax, and declining tension, and conclusion. Okay, so now we're going to plan our stories. So on this slide here, it has every section of the structure we just went through. So the introduction, rising tension, climax, declining tension, and conclusion. But it also has dot point sentence starters under each one, so you can plan each section of your structured story. So all you have to do is, number one, remember the unbreakable event that you circled in your road plan just before, and then you're going to write some dot points about each section. So you'll write a title with introduction and then follow those dot point sentence starters. Next, you'll write the few things that happen next. Next, you'll write climax and then follow those dot points, declining tension, conclusion. It's all there for you, and it should only take you about 10 minutes. Have fun. congratulations, you have your plan. That is brilliant. That's the hardest part done now. All we have to do is expand and shine, which we'll go through now. Awesome. So, just one last thing before you submit. Have a read of your story and read it to a mate and ask yourself if it encapsulates all of the feelings and the tension that you want it to. If it doesn't, if your words aren't yet doing your story justice, I've got some tips for you, some really quick tips that will help you to make your story shine. First tool, writing through the senses. One trick writers use to make the reader engaged in the story is to bring them into the world of the story. And one way to do this is to describe the setting of the story through the senses of sight, smell, touch, and sound. So you're going to do this really quick activity. Step one, fold a piece of paper into 4 sections, and then when you open it back up, you're going to write a sense in each section. You can pick which ones. Step three, you're going to choose a place in your story. So it can be any place at all, but really try to think of one that that is significant in your story and one that you would like to bring the reader into the world of. And then step four, imagine that you are back in that place, in that moment, and fill out each section. On the next slide, I'll go through a super quick example with you. Let's say a place in your story is your backyard. Instead of just writing, we were in my backyard and leaving it at that, you might say, we were in my backyard that night. I could smell the smoke from the fire pit and hear my mum's laughing with her sisters. Maybe you could describe how you felt as you watched the sky glowing with the setting sun. Even just one of these descriptions can make a world of difference to your story. So just have a play and give it a go. And last, our second tool. Now, another effective way to bring the reader into the story is through dialogue. Dialogue is, of course, the words people say to each other, and everyone has a unique way of talking. In fact, if I asked you right now to tell me something your best mate or your mum or your uncle always says, I bet you'd come up with something without too much thought. You can hear their voices in your head. Authentic, meaning real dialogue, is effective because it helps readers to relate to your story. They get an idea of who the characters are and the way that they are from what they say and how they talk. So, for this technique, you're going to find a spot in your story where people could or do talk to each other. For example, Dad told me we had to go. So, step two, you're going to think about how that person in your story talks and change the sentence into direct dialogue. So, for example, instead of Dad told me we had to go, could be righto. Every one of yous needs to get in the car now. Dad hollered, or something like that. Even just this really, really tiny, simple technique can bring the characters to life in your story, which will then bring the reader into the world of your story, which will then make your story shine. And that brings us to the end. Look at you. You've gone from a blank piece of paper to a completed story, one with structure and shine. You've harnessed the power of stories to document your life, empower yourself, and inspire your community. Check out the links above on how to submit. Remember, you can just whack it on a voice memo and send it that way if you prefer. And that's it from me. Well done, legends. Cannot wait to hear your stories.